All right, I'm going to go through an Illustrator introduction here. Just going to kind of cover some of the fundamental things, day one Illustrator stuff, first time on the program, maybe some differences between this and Photoshop, what you're used to. So what I want you to do is kind of follow along and make your canvas look like mine and then turn that in at the end of the hour. Or if you're just using this as a reference, you can too. So first thing, when you are going into a new canvas, this is what it's going to look like. I'm pretty sure by default that it's in pixels for you. So you want to change that to inches and then type in whatever you are going to make your canvas. Most of the time it's 8.5 by 11 in here, so that if we print it off, it's the size of a piece of paper. That is pretty much it for this. If you are on any of these, I think usually print shows, but you'll have your saved ones after you make a couple. And that goes in points. Anyways, 8.5 by 11, and then you're going to hit create, and lost my thing there. Okay. So a couple things you want to do right off the bat is go to Window and then go to Control. What that is going to do, it's going to bring up your options on the top tool panel, and that's really important. It gives us so many other options when we're working and so much easier to use when you have that up there. It would kind of be like if you were driving a car and you didn't have anything but the steering wheel and gas pedals, no blinkers, no radio, nothing else to make that ride easier, more enjoyable for you. It's kind of what that's like not having that toolbar up there. So I'll just dive into some things that are pretty much the same on Photoshop. The text tool you see, I'm just going to type a normal word here. That is the same as Photoshop, how it works. You just click, you don't have to make a text box. This is where it starts to get different. So there is no check mark on top. There are no layers on the side. You see it there, but really don't use it. Your main thing is this dark arrow tool right here. The dark arrow allows you to move stuff, make it bigger, rotate it. All right, and then once you also highlight it, so if you have other things on here, you click on it, it knows that you were trying to work on it, so then you can go into things like change your font and whatever. So I want you to try typing with that, rotate it, change your font, and do that. Now, the second thing is that both of these colors are always in play. And what I mean by that is on Photoshop, this background one, we only really use that for the layer mask and just have that secondary color there. These both are always live in Illustrator. So if I click on this top one here, that is your fill. That is the inside of the color. The second one here is your stroke, the color that goes around the outside. So I click on that, I just clicked on it once to bring it forward so it's kind of active. I can double click on it to get into my secondary colors. Or if you have your color up, if you don't, you can go to Window Color. You can just click on quickly on a color right there. And you see how that stroke goes around the outside. That can be adjusted by going, turning up and down your stroke on your control panel on top there. So go ahead and do that. Next, I will get into shapes. So below your text tool, you have these shapes. And all I want you to do is practice each one of these. So I'm going to make, and I want them all different colors and different strokes. So this one, maybe I'll do oh, by the way, to turn the stroke off, like let's say you have this shape and you don't want that border on there, you have this none sign or this deactivating little tile down here. And you can just click on that to get rid of whatever you want at any time. So right now I don't even have it inside there. So let's make a square with no inside. Let's make a rounded rectangle with a 4-point stroke. let's make a circle. And with the circle and all these ones, if you hold down shift, it'll keep it exactly proportional. And another cool thing, if you hold alt and shift, it'll start that shape from the center. So if you're trying to go like inside of one or do something like that, you could. But let's make the circle with a 10-point stroke. And let's hold up, let's go down to the star tool. Now the star tool is called that, but really, as you're dragging out, whoops, Control Z is still the same. As you're dragging the star tool out before you let go, if you hit your arrow keys, it changes the amount of points on your star. So really it's just like a shape tool. You go all the way down to a triangle. And if you hold down Alt, it'll actually change or control the distance of the points. So why don't you make a couple different shapes with the star tool, and why don't we make them overlap as well? Now I want to show you something. To duplicate in Illustrator, all you do is hold down Alt, and you can make multiples of those shapes. And the other thing is that I need to go through is like these layers. So there is a traditional layer panel, but it's rarely used. There'll be a couple projects where we reference it. But for the most part, all you do is you right click on a shape that you selected and you go to arrange, and you can just do one of these, like bring to front, send to back, and it arranges them for you on there. So you can mess around with that right there. To group is Control G, and now that shape is together. To ungroup, you just hit Control G again, and now you can move them separately. Oops, sorry. Or you can right click, sorry, and go to ungroup, and then you can move them separately again. All right, moving along here, let's talk about the pen tool. The pen tool is used to make shapes that are custom. Every time you click, it's like the polygon on a lasso, it makes an anchor point. And you notice that like right now I can't really see because it's auto-filling it. So usually you want to do this without a fill. So now I can make a shape like, and it's not a shape that I'm going to use, but then just click right on the anchor point where you end and use your dark arrow. Now that is a custom shape with the pen tool. Then I can go in and fill it in. If you try to do that with the fill on right away, it's probably going to look kind of weird. The other thing with that pen tool that's gets a little more complicated is if you hold down before you let go, you start to bend, and you can make shapes that have corners on there. Like that. Okay, a couple more things. Hold on one second. So the eyedropper tool, make sure this is going. The eyedropper tool is really unique on Illustrator, and what it does when you click on something, it copies the fill and the stroke. So just to apply this, let's make a polygon, which we haven't yet, and click on any of the other shapes we made with the eyedropper and just make it the same. And let's get into some text a little more. So what I want you to do is type your name and change up the font, and what you see here, same with the eyedropper, when you copy this or when you highlight that and use the eyedropper, if you click on a shape, it'll mimic the fill and the stroke. But if you actually click on active font, it'll change it to that exact font, that exact size, and the colors too. So if you were making a poster or a brochure or something and you wanted the text to be the same, that is where you could do that. Now, this is not really that editable when you are just typing. So when you have it done and you know you don't have to type anymore, what you can do is you can right click and you can create outlines. And what that kind of does is it turns it into a more editable object, and you have a lot more options here. So I'm just going to get rid of the strokes so we can see it better. The first one being that you can go to window, you go to effect and you can go to warp, and you can see all these options that we have to change our font. One of them being arch is really popular. If you're making a logo and you want text to go above and below, you just adjust it like that. If you hit OK, you see how like the shadow or the outline of the original font kind of stays there. So if you have that, you can go to Object, Expand Appearance, and then it goes right up on there. So you can see it a little better and make more adjustments to it. The other thing would be like how to ungroup this. If I want just a single letter from it, if I want to change these into different colors. So once you have an effect applied to it, you want to right click and ungroup it. And what that allows you to do is to select individual ones. So go ahead and ungroup your font and use your eyedropper tool on each letter and change it. If it is too big like this, you can make it a little smaller. And go through and finish that. When it is ungrouped too, you could move them around or rotate them or do anything like that, but you don't need to do that. There's a lot of other things on here. The magic wand tool, if you click on that, how you use it on here, if you click on something, everything that is that color will select. So if you were looking to change one color you had on an entire poster to a different color, you could use the magic wand and click on it, and then everything would select, and then you can change it all at once. The paintbrush tool can be used to kind of freehand draw, kind of like the pen tool, and make shapes like that. And without getting into a specific project, that's pretty much it. There is one thing if you want to add, if you're getting done a little early, the pen tool, if you draw a shape that's not connected, just kind of a line, you can then take your text tool on here and click on it, and then you can type on that path. If you're doing, might be good for some kind of poster making or creation of something. Now you can work outside of your canvas on Illustrator, which is really nice. You can have a lot of other things on there. If you're doing logos and you want to change up colors, you could have, you could do a bunch of the same logo and then practice with different color combinations. But when you save it, it is only what is inside of the canvas you made that saves. So make sure everything is on there. And then what you want to do is there's actually, when you go into File Save As, there is no JPEG. So when you're saving for Classroom, you're going to go to File, Export, and then go to Export As, and then right under that, in your drop-down menu, you'll have your JPEG. Then you go to Export, and then be ready to save on the Classroom. All right, that is pretty much it for the intro.